Hey guys, I'm Dave and welcome back to another video on the channel. If you're new here, I hope you enjoy the content and by the end you'll consider hitting that subscribe button. If you are a returning subscriber, thanks a lot. We are getting very close to my initial goal of 100 subscribers now, so it's pretty exciting to see, and thank you for helping to make that happen. Today we are talking about CRISPR Therapeutics once again. If you didn't see my first video on them, I would recommend you go and check it out. I will be sure to link it down in the description and maybe in a card. They recently had an investor day. They called it Innovation Day, where they talked about basically where they are with their new upcoming treatments, trials, how effective things are looking, where they're going in the future, and really just kind of showing off what they've been working on. I really do appreciate it when companies do this sort of thing instead of just kind of letting tidbits out in the earnings calls every quarter. If you really just sit down and go over everything new and exciting in one presentation, I think it can be pretty valuable to investors. So before we jump into the content from the Innovation Day, I just wanted to say up front that I am not a complete expert on this company. I feel like you basically have to be a medical professional to really understand a lot of the details here. It's extremely complicated. Usually when I research a company, I can apply a lot of the same principles to different companies, things that I've learned, look at different ratios. You're looking at things like their price to earnings compared to their earnings growth, their PEG ratio perhaps, their margins, all these sorts of things you can use to help value your companies and see if you think it's a good buy. With this kind of company, it all has to go out the window because basically they're developing new treatments to very serious diseases, and all the market and investors really care about right now is how effective will these treatments be. If we see trial results come back that they're either not safe or not as effective as we were hoping, that will devastate the stock. And likewise, if the treatments turn out to be extremely successful, the stock will do extremely well because we'll be able to sell those in the future and make a lot of money. So no real cash flows right now. Not a lot of traditional ways of valuing this company. We're kind of just trying to dive deep into the brand new gene editing technology, CRISPR-Cas9, and how they're trying to use it to treat things like cancers. And I do also want to point out that one of the reasons why I like holding companies like this is I do like to have my money going towards good causes and making the world a better place. So obviously I'm not running a charity here with my personal investments. I do need to make money, but if I can make money on something that is also going towards a good cause, that's really the best of both worlds, as opposed to investing in something like a cigarette company. I'm not really interested in that. Even if you can make a decent profit, I just drew those ethical boundaries. But obviously, you guys are all welcome to make your own choices on that. So let's jump into some of the content from the recent Innovation Day a couple days ago. So before we jump into the Innovation Day content, just to take a quick look at the stock chart. This is a 5-day chart of CRISPR Therapeutics, and we can see a giant drop right around here. The Innovation Day was on the 22nd, so clearly the markets did not like what they saw from this Innovation Day, and we're just going to try and go through some of the content and see if maybe this was an overreaction, if we do agree that the Innovation Day kind of underwhelmed and that the stock deserved to be hit, figure out really what's causing this big drop we had a few days ago. So just going over some of the more important slides from the deck on the Innovation Day. If you want to watch the entire presentation, I would recommend it if you're a shareholder. It's probably about 2 hours long, but just some kind of Cole's notes here. To start off with, they are transforming medicine across 4 core franchises. Hemoglobinopathies, immuno-oncology, regenerative medicine, and in vivo. In vivo, obviously, in contrast to in vitro, which would be outside the body in a petri dish type thing. You would take cells, remove them from the body, edit them, put them back in the body, whereas in vivo, you can make edits within the body, which would be a massive improvement and allow delivery and easier treatment for patients. Regenerative medicine includes edited cells and stem cells for diabetes. That's another big one. There's a lot of people out there with diabetes who could benefit from this new treatment. And then, of course, the other two as well. So if we go on to the next slide now, we can see that their exa-cel treatment has a functionally curative profile in sickle cell disease as well as beta thalassemia. So 44 patients were transfusion dependent with TDT disease, and out of those patients, 42 no longer had to have transfusions of red blood cells after treatment. Only 2 still needed to have transfusions, but those transfusions were reduced by 75% and 89% in transfusion volume, so much less reliant on those transfusions. Extremely good results for this treatment on TDT. Now, on sickle cell disease, there were 31 patients, and all 31 were VOC-free after treatment. So functionally curative is a very good result, obviously. Looking at the addressable market for it, right now, not too huge, 7,000 in beta thalassemia and 25,000 for sickle cell disease. This is addressable market with standard of care conditioning. Now, they see that expanding to 16,000 with beta thalassemia and 150,000 with sickle cell disease, with the potential market with targeted conditioning. And then even expanding on that, this is further down the line now. We have in vivo delivery as opposed to in vitro delivery. That's 100,000 plus per year with beta thalassemia and 350,000 plus per year with sickle cell disease. So absolutely massive numbers that could drive large amounts of revenue down the line if they do master that in vivo delivery. So for our CTX 130 treatment, that is the focus of a lot of today's Innovation Day. We had a 70% overall response rate and a 30% complete response rate, and that is at dose level 3 and above. So we can see here we have dose levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Relatively low response rates for dose levels 1 and 2. We can see just 2 patients here responded with dose level 1, and then obviously dose level 2 is 0. But at dose level 3 above, a 70% overall response rate. Now we're talking about changing the paradigm in T cell lymphomas with CTX 130. So currently there's significant unmet need within limited treatment options in both PTCL and CTCL, and CTX 130 has demonstrated a high overall response ratio with multi-compartment response and a tolerable safety profile. That's another important part of it. It can't just be effective, but be toxic and cause horrible side effects. It also has to be safe as well as effective. So having the tolerable safety profile is very important. Redosing can also deepen responses and further improve durability. So applying more doses to the patients can help their response as well. So given the high unmet need, there is the potential here to accelerate the approval with the FDA and get quicker treatments available to patients, which would be obviously great for the company. Now we're looking at a chart of tumor volumes here on the right. And you can see with no treatment how the tumor volume increases. Over 120 days, it goes from basically 0 up to 1250. if it's untreated, and with treatment of CTX130, the current drug they're working on, it is about half that. Now, they're looking at 2 new gene edits here. I'm not even going to try to say them because it's really a mouthful. But if you add these and create a new CTX131 treatment, which they're looking at as a future next generation treatment, we can see the tumor volume is dropping to basically nothing here. So that's very exciting if we can get that CTX131 going in the future. But CTX130 is still obviously very helpful in that it is about half the tumor volume that it would be otherwise. And then we're just going through the pipeline of products we have being worked on, a few in clinical trials here further along, and then we have some still in the research phase down here, a couple in the middle. Mostly wholly owned, which is nicer for the company, although there are a few collaborations working with outside organizations. Now, we also have an in vivo pipeline as opposed to the in vitro. This is sort of further down the line, next generation. It's a lot harder to implement, but this is really what we're looking for in the long term. There's some undisclosed programs here that they're not ready to talk about, as well as CTX 310, 320, 330. And a lot of these are wholly owned, but we also have a few collaborations. So a pretty robust product pipeline we're seeing from the company. And results look fairly good overall. So then you have to ask the question, of course, why did the stock drop so much right after this investor day? What were investors looking for that they didn't see? Well, one thing of note is that their candidate drug CTX120, they're moving away from it now and starting to develop CTX121, although we're pretty light on the details of that. So I think it's a bit of a disappointment that 120 is not looking too successful, and there isn't a lot of talk about the future of that drug as well. But more importantly, I think it comes back to this slide here, which is evidence for CTX130 in solid tumors. So this was a trial for 14 patients with solid tumors, and we have a complete response here of 1 at dose level 1. So that is basically completely getting rid of the tumor, stabilizing in 10, and then of course the remaining 3 were not successful. I think investors were looking for some more overall responses from patients, hoping for a little bit of a better result, but this is still pretty good. I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. Maybe just listening to the investor day yourself, you can hear the physician presenting the results is actually quite happy with it, although they do try to put spin on this in their presentations usually, so you can take that with a grain of salt, but he seemed pretty happy with the results for sure. If we go into a bit more details on the discussion, oh, and by the way, we're saying here that there's a potential of further increasing potency with more treatments. So in the CTX130 trial, patients with relapsed or refractory renal cell carcinoma, which are basically worse outlook patients who have already been treated and they've relapsed or their treatments have been unsuccessful. So it's kind of already the most difficult patients we're working on here, where it's more likely to be unsuccessful. Nevertheless, the overall response rate was 79%. And the stable events as well are quite meaningful. I know it's not as exciting as the tumor disappearing entirely like that one lucky patient had, but the 10 people who were able to stabilize with this treatment were able to bridge over to a transplant, whereas usually this sort of affliction would basically relegate you to just palliative care, so painkillers and stuff like that, as you kind of try to improve quality of life, but you can't really resolve the issue, so it's basically a death sentence, unfortunately. But now 11 out of 14 people were able to recover from this overall. So I think if you're someone in this case and you see that if you take this drug, you have an 11 out of 14 chance of surviving, and if you don't, you have a 100% chance of dying because of this horrible cancer, then you'll definitely want to take that treatment. I know I would for sure. So I think there is a little bit of an overreaction going on in the stock right now, personally. Although I guess results could have been a bit better. Having said that, this all doesn't occur in a vacuum. Other companies are working on next-gen treatments with gene editing as well. So we really have to look at how well they are doing and not just compare to current treatments on the market. Now let's head back and wrap it up with a discussion. So to wrap up here, the market looked a little disappointed that they're now moving away from their CTX 120 candidate treatment, and we'll move on to a next-gen development of CTX 121. But more importantly, their CTX 130 trial in people with solid tumors, only one patient out of 14 had a complete response, resulting in the tumor being destroyed and absent. It looks like the market was hoping for some more complete responses there. However, we did have 79% disease control rate, meaning that in other patients it stabilized and they were able to transplant. So if you're one of these patients and you can take this treatment and have a 79%. Just to wrap up the discussion here, I do think that we had a little bit of an overreaction in terms of the stock price dropping, although that's not really unheard of, especially in the volatile markets we're seeing today. Results are pretty good overall, I think, for CTX 130, although they definitely aren't vanishing tumors in everyone. There are a few other companies out there I really do need to research as well. I've heard great things about Vertex and Sana. I know a commenter last video actually put me onto those, and I looked a little bit into Vertex. It actually looks extremely promising as well, so I really need to look into that more. But overall, I'm continuing to hold the stock. I think there are definitely some good things coming out of this investor day. They're continuing to iterate on their treatments, not just continuing with the same model. You can see they're already going up to CTX 121, and they're also adding new edits on the CTX 130, which will vastly increase the performance of the treatment. So nice to see they're continuing to work on that, and very interesting presentation. I'll continue to watch this company going forward. But what do you guys think? Did you watch the presentation at all? Were you interested in it? Do you prefer Vertex? Any other gene editing stocks out there are you holding? And let me know what you think. I'll see you guys later.